Hola, bienvenidos a Discapacidad Televisión. Recuerda suscribirte para no perderte los últimos estrenos y programas en vivo. Danos un me gusta, y así nos ayudarás a conocerte mejor, y saber qué programación es tu favorita. Por favor, no te olvides de compartir, así, más personas podrán disfrutar de Discapacidad Televisión y toda su programación. Muchas gracias. Discapacidad Televisión.
¡Hola, mundo!
Primer canal de televisión dedicado al colectivo de personas con discapacidad desde 2006.
Conectados al cuidar, porque nos mueve incluir. Te invitamos a conocer la línea 800-000-058. Conectados al cuidar. Una línea gratuita de apoyo con profesionales dispuestos a acompañar y acoger a personas con discapacidad y sus cuidadoras. Esta línea también está disponible para atender consultas sobre el Servicio Nacional de la Discapacidad y además orientar sobre los trámites y beneficios del Estado en materia de inclusión. Puedes comunicarte de lunes a viernes desde las 9 hasta las 18 horas. Las personas sordas pueden contactarse a través del sistema Visor Web, disponible en el sitio web de Cenadis, www.cenadis.gov.cl.
Juli.
Sí.
¿Venís un segundo, por favor? ¿Cómo va todo?
Todo bien.
¿Bien?
Bien.
Genial, me alegro. Bueno, hoy se va a estar sumando un chico nuevo al equipo.
Bien.
Así que quiero que lo ayudemos, viste que el primer día no es fácil para nadie.
No.
Vos vas a ser el encargado de explicarle cómo funcionan las cosas.
Bien.
Tengámosle paciencia, viste que la adaptación no es fácil.
No, claro, obvio.
Si hay que explicarle las cosas 2 veces.
Se las explicamos 2 veces.
Sí, si hay que explicárselas 3 veces.
3 veces.
3 veces, perfecto. Mira, justo ahí viene.
Hola.
Hola. Mati, él es Juli.
Hola.
Juli va a ser el encargado de presentarte a los chicos del equipo y mostrarte cómo funciona todo por acá. Así que bueno, si quieren ir yendo.
Vamos, te muestro todo.
Juli. Vámonos a sentir uno más, ¿dale?
Sí. Freidora.
Y esta es la tostadora.
Bien, exacto. Bueno, en ese osito, poné la bebida.
¿La bebida?
Ah, sí, sí. Salen con de vainilla. No importa, tranquilo.
Discapacidad Televisión.
¡Hola, mundo!
Primer canal de televisión dedicado al colectivo de personas con discapacidad desde 2006. A continuación, Footless EE.UU, más allá de una amputación. Presenta EE.UU BECKWITH. Características de este programa. Audio en inglés, subtítulos en castellano.
So I managed to get it in, I get in my car, I lock the doors, and then I scream, like at the top of my lungs, you know, that guttural, I can't take this anymore, hands on the steering wheel, just, I was a little bit louder than that. Hello there, my beautiful internet friends. I come to you today out of the suitcase that caused complete and utter emotional collapse but a few hours ago. Now, I did not know that a piece of luggage had the power to do that, but you learn something new every day. Joining us today, we have the very creepy Nicolas Cage fellow. You're welcome, he's back. We got a little monkey behind me and we got cakes behind me on the other side. It's a little family party here. Also, there's me, who hasn't showered in days and frankly has no will to at the moment. So today, I'm gonna share with you something that breaks all of the rules of being disabled. Yes, there are unspoken rules. Very uncool, very uncouth, but I wanted to share an emotional truth. Perhaps the day will come when I am graceful about needing help, when I'm graceful about the reality that the world is not built for people like me. But that day was not today. I think generally speaking, I present myself as someone who's pretty comfortable with this situation because most of the time that I am. But something I've never been able to say that I feel like most self-realized disabled people are able to say is that, like, I wouldn't have it any other way. But the reality is that I would. The day I had to go back to the airport to pick up our luggage because it got lost, no big deal, these things happen, and all of the disabled, the handicapped parking was taken. There were like 25 spots and a solid half of those were taken up by people who did not have a license plate or placard indicating that they were allowed to park there, which normally would be okay because on good days I can walk distances, but let me show you what's going on right now. Because I've been traveling for days, something started going on with my skin and my leg, where it's not good. I don't know how well you can see this on camera, but this is one of the very deep, dark bruises that I have that's very painful to walk on. So when I saw that all the spots were taken, I got a little concerned because the closest parking aside from that was like half a mile away. And it's very painful to even take a couple steps right now, so I was like, ooh, that's not gonna work. So I didn't get frustrated. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna get creative. Let me call the baggage people and see if they can bring it out to me. Yeah, called, they didn't answer. Okay, all right, no need to panic. Why don't I call the airport themselves? And I explained that, hey, I'm disabled, I can't walk long distances, but I needed to get in to just pick up the baggage and go. Like, I've gotta get back to work. Is there anyone who could bring it out to me? And they're like, no, but maybe we could arrange a van to come get you in like an hour. Maybe someone could bring a wheelchair out to the parking lot like half a mile away from the building to bring you in so that they can check your ID. You know, let me transfer you to a couple other people and see if we can arrange that. For the record, this is a very kind, nice, accommodating thing to do. No one in this situation did anything wrong. And as I'm sitting in my car thinking about this, thinking about the fact that I'm gonna have to like wait at the airport for a long time for someone to hopefully be able to come get me so I can go inside, so I can show my ID, involving other people, involving like arranging travel, I was like, you know what, screw it. I'm gonna deal with the pain. And this is a personal issue that I have where I am just too damn stubborn sometimes to accept the help that I actually need. So I parked a half mile away. I hobbled my way in on the verge of tears because I was in a lot of pain and pretty frustrating. Nobody was at the desk. That's not important to the story, but I had to stand there for a while, got my baggage and headed out to the car. But this puppy right here weighed about 50 pounds. So I was struggling. I made it to my car. I'm trying to like muscle it in, which technically, yeah, I could have asked for help, but I didn't want to. I didn't want to admit that I live in a world where I need help today. So as I'm very clearly struggling to lift this bag into my car, a lady stops and was like, hey, do you need help? And that was like my breaking point. I was like, no, thank you though. Like I tried to be nice, but I was very firm that I did not need assistance. And she was like, are you sure? I really wouldn't mind helping. And I was like, I'm really okay, as I'm like struggling under the weight of this bag. Hi, monkey. Did I scare you with my passion? I am sorry. As I clearly need help, I'm like actively denying it and she's being nice. So I managed to get it in. I get in my car, I lock the doors, and then I scream. Like at the top of my lungs, you know, that guttural, I can't take this anymore, hands on the steering wheel, just, ah. I was a little bit louder than that. Because today, unlike most days, is a day that it was unable for me to ignore the fact that the world is not made for me, and that I do need help, that I am different, and that it takes a lot more pain and energy to exist in the world for me than perhaps for the average person. And here's the reason I wanted to make this video. I've been thinking about it a lot lately, and I've realized that being disabled really just means that the world isn't built for people like you, the world is built for other people, so you have to adapt. For instance, if everyone was an amputee, we'd have a world where being an amputee wasn't a disability, where everything was already built for you. If most of the population were blind, we would have a world that is built for blind people, but we don't have that. And here's the thing that I'm not supposed to say, or I feel like I'm not supposed to say. When I am reminded of the fact that the world is not really built for me, I am filled with such rage and frustration and sadness. Mostly it manifests as anger because I think it's trying to cover up something deeper, and I hate it. I really hate it. And being a disabled person on social media, someone who speaks publicly about my experiences, I know that's not what I'm supposed to say. I know what I'm supposed to say from watching literally everybody else around me, from what everybody tells me. What I'm supposed to say is that, yeah, there are some challenges, but I wouldn't ever have life any other way. Like, this is the best thing that's ever happened to me, you know? I've grown so much, it's made me so much stronger. And I don't know if it's just where I am in my journey. I've talked about this before, but I sure as shit cannot say that. This is extraordinarily hard and painful sometimes. And if I voice that, I risk triggering one of two things. This is four, so two things. There we go. If I express to someone I'm having a really, really hard time with missing my leg and all the obstacles that life has with that, I might get the sympathy voice of, oh gosh, that's really hard. I'm so sorry. Which is a lovely response, don't get me wrong, but there's just a certain sympathy voice that we all know and understand that in many moments is not helpful. Or you get the, well, it's all about mindset, you gotta be positive, you gotta suck it up and deal with it, which is also not particularly helpful to me. And so I feel like I'm stuck in this place where I simultaneously need to, and it's also expected of me, to be positive and happy about this stuff all the time, and that's just not the reality. So rarely do I ever see anyone express the fact from like a real place that living in a world that is not made for what you are is really freaking hard. And sometimes I don't like it. Sometimes I'm not pleasant about it. I think I do a really good job of fulfilling the role of like the palatable disabled person who's able to pass in a normal society, because I can do a lot of stuff for myself. I am a pretty positive-minded sort of person, genuinely. Like, I can persevere through a lot, I know that. But there are some days that I fucking hate this. There are some days when I just sit in my car and I grab the steering wheel and I scream. I was recently on a podcast with a new friend by the name of Robbie Ripple. I'll link it down below. And as we were talking before and during that podcast, he was like, wow, you know, you posted something about struggling with something with your mental health. I just never would have thought that about you. You seem like such a put together positive person. And I'm like, who am I fooling then? Because there are a lot of moments when this feels intolerable. And I feel like that's a bad thing to say in my community because it like shows, I don't know, weakness? Is it bitterness? I don't think so. Maybe it is a little bit. And if that's the case, that's something I'll definitely work through. I guess that there's a part of me that wants to know that I'm not the only person who isn't cool with this all the time. It doesn't feel like there's a place either in society or even sometimes personally for these feelings, because it's like, well, this is your life, you've got to adapt to it, deal with it. And you got the sympathy or the toughen up from other people. Like, I'm 2.5 years into it. I've adapted and adjusted to a lot of things. There's so much that I can do. I am so ridiculously grateful. But my life is always gonna look different than the average person. It's always gonna be more expensive with medical stuff. It's always gonna come with days when a hole forms in my sleeve and so suction won't form and I can't walk. I'm always gonna rely on assistive devices to be able to move throughout the world. And when I say that, it feels like it's crushing my soul, even though I know assistive devices are not a bad thing, right? I just hate it sometimes. You know, thinking about myself now compared to 2 years ago, I do accept help a little bit more gracefully. I'll ask for it a little bit more, but honestly, I'm still so stubborn when it comes to those topics. Maybe a day will come when something like this arises, when I can barely walk and I'm gonna have to walk a long distance, and I just accept that limitation, or I reach out for help so things are easier on me. But man, that day isn't today. Feeling that helplessness and letting it in, admitting that it's there, feels worse than walking on a very deep bruise that is causing me physical pain. Admitting that I need help, ooh, not a fan. I find myself really, really angry today and in some moments, and I wanted to put words to that before I've worked through it, before I've rationalized it, before I felt it, allowed it to dissipate, because these moments are equally as valid and as real as the moments when I'm like, yeah, I gotta adapt to some things, but this is awesome, life is great, right? And life is great. But admitting that sometimes things really suck is not, in my opinion, a character flaw or failing. Oh, some days are just hard. And I know for a gosh darn fact that I will get through this just fine. That I will be great in a few hours or a few days. Everything's okay. Just sometimes it doesn't feel like it. And I think it's okay to grab your steering wheel in an empty car, lock your doors, and just scream until your throat hurts sometimes if that's what you need to do. Because sometimes that's what I need to do. And I think it's important to acknowledge that part of the journey too, because so much of what I see, being a part of this community, so much of what I see is just positivity and inspiration, and those things are beautiful and good, but they can make you feel very lonely when you're not feeling that way. It's okay if you lose your cool sometimes. It's okay if you're genuinely not okay in some moments. It's alright to be mad and to be pissed off and to maybe even sometimes wish life was different. Those are human, normal emotions, normal reactions. There's no sin or crime or moral failing in feeling those. I felt like there was for so long, but there isn't. And feeling them doesn't mean that you're not still gonna kick ass at life and persevere and get through things. Because that's 100% what I'm gonna do, and that's 100% what you're gonna do. Alright guys, I think it's probably time that I get out of my suitcase, maybe take a shower, fold some blankets and some laundry, pet my puppy, pet my cute kitty, kiss my husband, and carry on with my day. I wanted to share with you a story today of the first time that I've ever been genuinely scared for my life. I realize that sounds dramatic, but it also felt dramatic because as someone who deals with chronic illness and chronic pain, I have been in and out of the hospital. I have seen more doctors than literally I can count. I've been to the ER many times, but I've never had a moment of thinking, oh my God, that was almost it. Like I was so close to potentially losing my life because I wasn't listening to my body, because as someone with chronic issues, you kind of become accustomed to writing pain off and not paying attention to it because you feel it all the time. So I wanted to share this story to let you guys know what's been going on, but also as a reminder to those of us who do deal with weird body stuff, be that chronic pain, chronic illness, something else, that if something feels off, it's very important to get it checked out, because I almost didn't. And if I didn't, this story would have a very different ending. So with that being said, allow me to take you to 2 weeks ago. I woke up at 1 o'clock in the morning in a lot of pain, a lot of lower abdominal pain, a lot of lower back and sort of up into my flank pain. And initially I didn't really think anything of it because that's not that abnormal. I deal with a lot of pain pretty much every day. So I got up because I knew I couldn't sleep upstairs. I came downstairs, I made myself a little nest with blankets. I put a heating pad on my lower back. I was gonna make myself some tea. I get ready to try to just pass out on the couch downstairs and go to sleep. But that lower back, like flank pain, was just weird, right? Like I don't usually get pain there. So after thinking about it for a while, I hobble upstairs, I wake up my dear sweet husband who had a meeting at like 6 in the morning and was like, hey, I'm super sorry. I know everything's fine. I know this is nothing because we've been here before and we'll be here again, but I think I need to go in the ER because I'm having trouble breathing and can't really stand up straight, and just the pain's different. So we get up, we go in, the car ride over is awful because the bumps in the road like spiked the pain up so much. So by the time I got there, I was like, yeah, it was probably, maybe it was a good idea to come in, but I'm also very used to going to an emergency room or going to a hospital or going to a doctor's appointment for people to be like, everything's fine, we're not even sure why you came in so many words. So I fully expected that to be the case. They start running labs, do a CT scan, and come in to tell me, Joe, you have a very serious kidney infection that's pretty advanced. Why did you not come in sooner? Like they immediately started me on IV antibiotics. Eventually when they sent me home with very high doses of a pretty darn strong antibiotic to kind of knock that out of my system. And as kindly as they could, were honestly scolding me for waiting so long, right? Like you shouldn't wait so long if something's wrong, you know, this almost turned septic, that could have killed you. In fact, the nurse told me right before I left, she was like, just so you know, there was a 19-year-old girl here who was expecting last week who died because she waited like you did. Like you really need to come in if you think something's wrong, you know, please take care of yourself. And at that moment, I started crying, which I don't really do often in front of doctors. I don't do super often in front of anybody. But in that moment, I was hit by the realization that as someone who is in a lot of pain, who deals with weird body stuff that oftentimes doesn't have an answer, though we are getting very close to that answer, you will hear in future videos, I've completely lost the gauge for what's serious, potentially life-threatening, or what's just a normal day. It's just a normal day of my body feeling not great. I was in a significant amount of pain and I was gonna write it off as, I don't know, cramps and pass out on the couch with a heating pad. Like I can't express to you how close I was to just doing that and not bothering with going in because I knew it was just gonna be nothing. I'm so glad there was some part of my body or my subconscious that was like, yeah, this is a little bit different, maybe you should go in. But just sort of the understanding that I have no idea what's serious or not. After living in a body that for 20 years has been painful and uncomfortable, I am so ready, willing, and able to label anything weird or odd or off as just my body's being weird, right? It does these things. But if I had done that this time, very possibly would have died. And that was the first moment in my life when I've ever felt real fear of like, oh, I don't have a compass. I don't have an accurate gauge for what is normal versus abnormal anymore to know when my life might be in danger, right? Like, am I having a heart attack, or is it just a normal day of all of the symptoms of a heart attack that women get that I'm having, but I know I'm perfectly fine? I think that's one of the most bizarre things about being a chronic pain and illness person, is it feels like for normal people, if you're like, oh man, my stomach's really hurting, it's not going away, this feels weird, I should get it checked out, like that's a normal thing to do. But when you're someone who that's like a daily occurrence, you just try your best to like move on, forget about it, keep working anyways, do whatever you can. And it's hard to know. I've said this probably too much in this video, but it's really hard to know what's serious and what's just your body being dumb, right? Like just your body doing what your body does because your body has issues. And I hope to kind of personally learn from this experience to pay a little closer attention to different symptoms that I'm having and to maybe not write everything off, but I'll be honest, it is very unnerving. Is this life-threatening, or is this a normal Tuesday? If you are someone who deals with chronic issues, let me know if you felt this way in the comment section down below, and if you're someone who doesn't, but maybe knows someone who does, I just want to let you know that this might be something that they're dealing with and going through, and when they're talking about symptoms or, you know, don't know what to do, it is genuinely confusing. It's really hard living in a body that functions differently than the average person, because sometimes you don't know what to do. But it's very important to listen to yourself, to listen to your gut, to your intuition, and to get checked out even if it's super inconvenient and just feels stupid and is also really expensive. It is worth doing if it could save your life or save you from something very, more difficult to go through. Also, side note, kidney infections, would not recommend them. Not super fun. I don't know if you guys have ever had a kidney infection. I always knew that your kidneys were kind of generally in, like, you'd feel them like in your back. I used to fight MMA and I like knew what a kidney shot was. I knew that was like super painful for people, but man, I know exactly where my kidneys are now and I would like to not feel them ever again. It was not like the worst thing ever, but it was significantly uncomfortable. So if you think you might have something going on with your, kidneys, get it checked out. I do want to note, for anyone who's been following along on Instagram, I'd love to see you there if you feel like joining me, or in my past video. There's been a lot more that has occurred over the last 2 weeks when it comes to the world of medicine and doctors and really bad experiences, and also an actual diagnosis, which is cool? Terrifying? Really not sure yet. So the next few videos are gonna be me talking about a few of those experiences, talking about some of the issues surrounding those. There's a plane flying overhead, hopefully you can still hear me. It's really loud, I'm gonna wait until it passes. And sharing some of the good, bad, and the ugly. So if you are interested, I would love to see you in those videos. If that's not your cup of tea, skip the next couple, I'll see you after that. But enough things have occurred that I really want to talk about because I think they matter. I think they matter on a much larger scale than my little life. So be looking for those in the near future as I am able to film them. But I feel very out of sorts today. I don't feel all right just yet. I'm not sure if that comes through or not. But if it does, that's what's going on. I'm just kind of struggling, kind of having a hard time, but I'll be all right. Do you like how my voice kind of quivered there for a second? I will be a-okay. It's just something to get through. So I will see you guys in the near future. I am not sure when, as soon as I am able to film again. To you watching this video, thank you so much for spending a few minutes out of your day here listening to me today. You could be anywhere else in the world doing anything else, and you chose to hang out with me for a few minutes. I really appreciate that. So I've been sitting here for about an hour so far trying to start telling you the story of the past 7 days, and I realize that I am not yet in a place to be able to articulate that, and I'm gonna respect my brain and my body's needs and wait until I have words. But what I am gonna tell you is that I experienced something during the past week that was trauma. And what I wanted to do today is share in the immediate aftermath, as I am still very actively processing what happened, what some of the signs that I indeed did experience trauma were for me, and also a very, very simple 3-step guide on how to take care of yourself when you've experienced something traumatic. So I've been in and out of the ER and the hospital. I had a very bad kidney infection that was about to turn very bad, but thankfully they caught it in time. That in itself was a frightening experience for a variety of reasons, but honestly, the things that happened after that, in the aftermath, what I experienced in the medical community, and how I was treated was not okay. Here's the thing, I've been in and out of ERs and hospitals and surgeries and chronic pain and chronic illness and doctor's appointments in the Mayo Clinic for the past 2 decades. Like, having to go to the ER, not a new thing. I'm kind of a pro at it. Having very poor experiences with the medical community, also nothing new. So when I was home and recovering from everything that occurred, it was very confusing to me how I was feeling, because I couldn't focus on anything, couldn't put words together as much as I tried. Usually when I experience something, good, bad, whatever, I'm a big fan of putting things into words and journaling it and writing it down for other people and sharing stories and using your voice for change. And as much as I tried to put into words what had occurred, I couldn't do it, which is very weird for me because that's kind of my job. There was nothing there. I felt like I was being strangled as I tried to put into words this story of what occurred. Then I realized I wasn't sleeping, and it was beyond just being like in pain and uncomfortable. I was not sleeping. My body would not shut off. I was like staring at the wall for hours at a time. Much more than recovering from an infection, because things were under control. My body felt like it weighed 1,000,000 pounds. Like I couldn't move, I couldn't do anything. I had less than no motivation to do anything, like even to turn over and like press play on a remote, right? Like that seemed like too much. And I could not stop thinking about what had happened in a very intrusive way, not like in a pondering the logistics and, oh, that wasn't cool or whatever, but like just replaying this one moment in particular over and over and over and over. I was not functioning and didn't have an idea of how to begin to function or any motivation to really do so, and I know enough about myself, right? I've gone through a lot of therapy to know when I am entering, I am very much not okay and probably need to reach out for help waters. And I was like, aha, I believe this to be one of those moments. My husband really encouraged me to reach out to my therapist. I was able to speak with her and went over the details of what occurred and expressed frustration that I wasn't able to talk about it or put into words what I was feeling. Like, I knew I wasn't okay, but I also had absolutely no vocabulary to be able to articulate that. Hi friends, it's Heating Pad Joe. My camera messed up the next minute of what I was supposed to be talking about, so we get next day Joe. And yes, I am still wearing the exact same clothes. So after I went through the overarching story of what had occurred with my therapist, she asked me if I actually knew what the definition of trauma is. And as someone who has talked about trauma on a channel called Trauma Talk for almost 4 years, my immediate response was, of course I do. But then come to think of it, I was like, I don't think I've ever stopped to really consider what the specific parameters and details are. So we went over that. Come to quickly realize things that occurred over the past week absolutely fit into that definition, and my reaction to what had occurred was very typical for experiencing trauma. Important to note here, experiencing trauma does not mean that you are going to develop PTSD, which is post-traumatic stress disorder. I think sometimes we link those two in our minds. A lot of people experience trauma, it's difficult to get through, but do not develop PTSD. All right, I think that's it. Let's go back to Joe from yesterday. So because I personally am not an expert, I am going to link some resources down below on really what trauma is and how we define that, how we figure that out, and what that means. But once I realized I was like in the immediate aftermath of trauma, like I've never had the awareness or the knowledge to know in previous traumas that is what was going on. I was just like in survival mode, which is entirely valid and is how our bodies respond to trauma in many situations. I was like, okay, I have a word for this thing, but even having spoken about this topic for years, I am not new to this subject. I realized I had no idea how to deal with that in like the immediate aftermath. I'm well versed in like processing things months or weeks or years after the fact. But when your brain is still trying to find a place to file all of this experience, when you can't put things into words just yet to begin to process them, what the heck are you supposed to do? And some very wise advice was given to me that I shall not pass on to you. Let me know if it resonates with you. I was told to treat myself like a plant. Water, food, maybe a little bit of sunlight. And that kind of makes me giggle because I think it's a cute analogy, but I also think it's an accurate one. When we go through something traumatic, our brains and our bodies are functioning differently than normal. This is a known biological, psychological fact. You are not processing information and your life the same way you normally are. So it's very important to pay attention to your basic needs. I realized I was not eating. I was drinking water because, you know, I had a kidney infection. It's kind of important to drink water for your kidneys. And I had not seen sunlight in days, and so I started focusing on doing those things. With the experiences with trauma that I've had in my life, I know enough to know that I will be okay. I'll get to a place where I can talk about this, where I can process it, where I'm able to organize everything appropriately in my brain so that I don't just feel frozen and awful. I am grateful that I have a support system in place as I kind of work through this, between calling friends and reaching out to a therapist. Those are both things I would highly recommend if you don't already have that in place, to have a professional that you can reach out to if you are able to know crisis lines if you get to a scary place, if there are people in your life who could be safe to talk to have those conversations. And with that being said, my darling friends, my body is letting me know it is time to lay down again because I am still recovering from not just the kidney infection, but there was additional medical stuff that occurred this week. So I'm gonna turn off the camera, lay down, drink some water, eat eventually, maybe get some sunlight, treat myself like a plant, and I'll be back soon. Thank you for listening. If you are watching this because you believe you have experienced some kind of trauma and you don't know what to do in the immediate aftermath, you're not alone, you're not weird, you're not broken for feeling the way that you're feeling. Trauma is not just like an icky experience. It is something that has a biological, physical, psychological effect on us. And if you're confused by your reactions, that is 100% understandable. But please know, you're not always gonna feel like this. Remember to eat some food, drink some water, get some sunlight, reach out when you need it. And you can take this step by step, as I will be doing as well. Thank you so much to my lovely patrons over on Patreon for supporting what I do here, especially when I have to take an unexpected week off. Your support is genuinely so kind and generous and helpful, so thank you. And to you watching this video right now, thank you so much for spending a few minutes out of your day here with me. You could be anywhere else in the world doing anything else, and you chose to hang out with me and listen to me talk for a few minutes, and that is an honor, so thank you. I love you guys, I'm thinking about you, and I will see you in the next video. Bye guys.
Have heard from the sky all about it. Down the river, high tide flows around it. Through the whispers of pines, I hear them sing. The more you love, the more you live.
Discapacidad Televisión.
¡Hola mundo!
Primer canal de televisión dedicado al colectivo de personas con discapacidad desde 2006. Hola, bienvenidos a Discapacidad Televisión. Recuerda suscribirte para no perderte los últimos estrenos y programas en vivo. Danos un me gusta, y así nos ayudarás a conocerte mejor y saber qué programación es tu favorita. Por favor, no te olvides de compartir. Así, más personas podrán disfrutar de Discapacidad Televisión y toda su programación. Muchas gracias. Discapacidad Televisión.
¡Hola mundo!
Primer canal de televisión dedicado al colectivo de personas con discapacidad desde 2006.